How are you guys doing? But no, I mean, just to start out, guys, obviously just frustrated with how Saturday night went. It's a huge game for this place, huge game for our players, and obviously not a reflection of who I feel we are as a defense, and I take full responsibility for it. Our players play hard. Obviously did not play the standard we want to play with, and 100% falls on me, and we'll make sure we got some intricate ways we're going to get it fixed, and we will in the future.
What would be the priority coming out of the BYU game in terms of what needs to be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, there's a long list, which is always after a win or a loss, and that's why I even tell our players, like, it's not like let's say even stats wise, you leave a game, you do well, like, oh, there's only one thing to improve. There's always a good amount. I'd say obviously first and foremost be tackling. We've been a really good tackling team. Not perfect. There's been a lot that we need to grow in, and we're always trying to find ways to switch it up. But this past Saturday night we were not. By far our worst tackling game. And once again, I take full responsibility. Making sure our drills the right ones we need to be hitting consistently. Are we putting them in those spots, those angles, especially on the two screens that hit? We got to find a way to get that down. And that's on me for not setting up enough drills to put them in those spots, so that the next time we get in that situation, we're not giving up 100 yards on two screenplays. And that's but like I said, it's the tackling's the biggest thing that we left from a fundamental standpoint. Then obviously schematically, some of the different things we were being attacked with, some of the sets we were seeing were things that we're going to work on to clean up so our guys can make plays.
How much of that was, obviously BYU is a big, strong, physical team, maybe more so than the average Mountain West team. How much did that play a role?
Yeah, I mean, they're a very talented offense. We knew coming in, obviously their record didn't quite reflect who they were as an offense, but every team they played against, they moved the ball, they scored points on, and they obviously played a lot of very talented teams. So there was nothing for us going in. We did not take lightly because of the record they have. We knew from the quarterback to the tailbacks to how big their O-line was, to we felt like it was the best receiving core we'd seen all year going into the game, and obviously leaving the game. We still feel the same way. I think number 12 is one of the best receivers we've seen all year, and got a lot of respect for what they do. So we went in knowing that. But I think at the end of the day, it's the execution. That's the biggest thing that we just need to continue to grow and harp in. And we gave up 10 explosive plays. And defensively, that's something we've been able to eliminate if it's by pursuit, if it's by communication, eye control. And we didn't eliminate them in that game. And obviously, first and foremost with me, making sure they're in the right position to make those plays. But then at the end of the day, it's getting them to be able to make the tackle when we can make the tackle, and in practice, repping that to where we can.
Not having George Tarlas, a highly limited Zeke Noah, you lose Dimitri on the first play. Scott was back, but he missed last game, and those are your top four guys that put pressure on the quarterback this year. Not having those guys, how much more difficult does that make it to put pressure on the quarterback? Yeah,
no question. I mean, when you lose those guys, especially this time of the year, it hurts you, especially from a pressure standpoint. But just like anything, it's got to be next man up mentality, and I got to find more ways to create pressure, because we didn't get pressure Saturday night, which was a huge factor, because at the end of the day, that's the beauty about defense. It's all correlated. If you stop the run, it's not just because the D tackle played great. If you don't stop the run, it's not just because the D tackle didn't play great, right? It's everybody inclusive. No different in the pass game. We gave up a lot of pass yards, not just because one guy's mistake in the secondary. It's all inclusive. It's not enough pressure on the quarterback. It's obviously some eye control issues. It's all these different things that can come in. But a lot of it, we got to find ways to pressure and confuse the quarterback. That is a paramount deal for our defense, and we obviously didn't get it done this weekend. And it showed up when a guy's able to sit back there and make the reads, and he played a great game. Hats off to what they did. But we can't be successful if we can't find a way to get to the quarterback. We got to find better ways to get to him, and I got to make sure we put these guys in a lot better spots, because once again, these guys are working their tails off. Their trend. They played hard in that game, and there's a lot of plays on film that are sloppy, but our guys are playing hard. And now it's just as a coaching staff making sure we continue to clean up the fundamentals to where these same mistakes don't show up. And that's always what it is. Once again, in a win or in a loss, it's the same. Obviously, in a loss like that on the Blue, giving up the yards we did, there's obviously a lot of light on it right now, but it's no different for us going from a game and seeing that, hey, this is where we struggled at. We got to get this fixed. And our guys feel the same way. And that's what breaks my heart the most is, obviously, as a competitor, you want to win the game. I want to see our guys excel, but I see how hard they work, and then seeing them not win the game, not play to the standard that we want them to play with, and they're heartbroken, obviously tears my heart out of my chest, because I know how hard they've worked for that game, for that moment. And so we're just going to make sure we go back and clean up the things that that showed up in the game that created explosive plays and kept us on the field. I mean, we had 45 snaps of defense in the first half. And so at some point, it's a 10-14 ball game with 3 minutes left in the third. And so I'm not going to say we got worn down, but there was a little bit of that because we couldn't get off the field. I mean, it was just we were dealing with 1st and 10, then 2nd and 3, and then 1st and 10. So you just always, they did a good job creating different looks, and we were reeling there. We couldn't find a way to finish it out. And so once again, I take full responsibility. We got a great group of players that love playing for each other, and so now it's fine-tuning a lot of these details from the fundamentals, the tackling, and then some of the schematic stuff to get more pressure on the quarterback.
Rodney Robinson had a big pick on Saturday. What have you learned about him in terms of his instincts when the ball's in the air?
Yeah, it was obviously a huge play in the game. Backs up against the wall in the red zone. But seeing him make that play was awesome. And just like the other guys in this defense, he's in here grinding it out, trying to find just a way to improve his game every single week. And seeing him where he was last year to how he's playing now, once again, Rodney's still got a long way to go, and there's a lot of things that he's excited to grow in, and we're excited for him too. But having to make that play, that big play when we need him to, was awesome, and he does the same thing in practice. He works his tail off in practice, and so now it's cool to see it show up in games.
Where's he doing the most this year?
I would say his biggest thing is just understanding his part in the full defense and being able, because obviously in the back end, you got to be able to set the whole umbrella, and having T. Jones out there at nickel and him at field safety, seeing him now take ownership on some of those calls, on the checks that we need him to make, and seeing him understand, okay, how does this full defense work together? And so then I know, okay, here's my toolbox that I can use, the different things I can use on a given play or a given formation, and that's grown a lot for him.
A week or two ago, you don't look at the stats, you'll worry about it after the season. But I mean, you guys obviously ranked pretty high in a lot of areas. You've been playing really well. I mean, to have a game like that, I don't know if wake-up call is the right word, but does it kind of bring your guys back down a little bit? Like, yeah, we still, all this stuff we've been saying, we still do have a lot of work to do.
Oh, no question. And I will say this, like, it definitely is one of those things for this group and for our defense. It wasn't. I can't say it a wake-up call because it's just every week you live on the razor's edge. And going into last week, going into the prep for it, going into practice, everybody knew the opponent that we were about to face. You can watch the film and see how good their receivers are, that quarterback was, their O-line. And so for us, it's week in and week out, but it does continue to show you the razor's edge you live on when you play defense. You can put a couple good games together statistically. You can have a couple good drives, a good half, but then all of a sudden, if you give up explosive plays, then statistically, it's obviously not a good game. And so that's where it's, for me, it always comes back to, okay, what are your controllables? Make sure you always find the why from a game. Okay, why did that go wrong? Not just that you're frustrated, but okay, why did we not tackle well? Why did we give up this plays? And then at the end of the day, we go back to the drawing board and make sure we put our guys in good spots, and then we're practicing the things we need to grow in practice. And then that model, that mode, I really believe will get our guys where we continue to play fast and confident, and continue to grow, because that's how it is for our whole group. And it's not just it's a statistics thing. It's so that these guys can be confident and play fast on the field. And usually that turns into you playing really well statistically defensively.
You mentioned trying to dial up things to get pressure. We didn't see too many blitzes. Not that you guys blitz an insane amount, but is that something that BYU is doing, something where you didn't want to blitz, or is that maybe a regret where you're like, man, I should have blitzed more?
No, good question. I mean, it's just we got to find different ways to create pressure on the quarterback, and that doesn't mean just always blitzing all of them or all these different looks. We just right now with the losses we've had up front, we're going to have to look at different ways where maybe we got pressure earlier on the season. There's maybe going to be some different ways that we're going to have to create it. And so there's always things we're looking at. It's all about your personnel and how we can use them. So we obviously have our guys we got now, which is more than enough, and the guys that are stepping up in roles because guys have gotten hurt have done a great job, and they're going to keep working their tails off. And so now it's us as coaches to say, okay, what do they do best? Maybe George did this really well, but now how do we get blank player to play very fast and confident and do a lot for this group? And so that's the biggest thing. It's not, for me, it's not so much, okay, what is this pressure? What's this blitz pattern? It's just what do our guys do really well, and what can they execute at a high level when they're on national television, and nobody wants to make a mistake when that happens. So let's build the confidence in practice.
I know he and Caleb had some good moments and some bad moments. As you go back and watch the film, like, how did you think they play? It's tough for fans sometimes.
Yeah.
They just see the bad and not necessarily the good.
Yeah, I mean, not just to speak to them, but just as a whole group, we were just inconsistent on Saturday night. very proud of how hard they fought. And like I said, we watched a lot of this as a full defense yesterday, and we just kind of just showed the flow of the game. I mean, and I used the score being, whatever it was, 14-7 or 14-10 at, so many minutes left in the third, because after a game like that, sometimes as a player, even as a coach, you can just be like, oh, what in the world happened? But why? Why did these plays happen? Why did we get in this situation? Why did we give these explosive plays? And so just to speak about Noe and Biggs, I mean, they've been playing at a high level. And did they make mistakes in the game that they would want to play better? 100%. Just like every player in our defense, just like I did on Saturday night as well. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because at the end of the day, as a coaching staff, for me, it's all about putting these guys in the right spot. With every call I make, the only thing that I want is for them to be in the right situation to make the play. Then it's them going out there and executing, having fun, and playing fast and confident. So every player on our team, every coach on our staff looks at a game after and sees, okay, how can we grow? How can we learn from it? But proud of Noe, proud of Biggs, and they did some good stuff Saturday night. Obviously, there's some things they want to be better at, and we're going to work at it starting tomorrow.
What are you seeing in Nevada?
Yeah, so it's really, watching the San Jose State game, you really see them kind of come into their own as an offense. They're taking all cylinders. I got a lot of respect for what San Jose State does defensively, and seeing them what they did. To me, I feel like they're starting to really find their knack. Their quarterback now is able to make all the throws. Obviously, very long Oklahoma State transfer, can run, but he's got a strong arm. Obviously, had a lot of big-time shots. And then their tailback's been there for a long time, tough runner, tough to get down. You very rarely see one guy tackle him. And they got a good receiving corps. And they've done a really good job mixing up the looks, mixing up the formations, and getting in and out of a lot of different personnels, especially via tempo as well. So I know it's going to be a task for us Saturday night, and especially going to their place. Got a lot of respect for what they do, got a lot of respect for their staff, and so our guys are up here right now, back to the drawing board to continue to find ways to play good defense.
In terms of self-scout, do you think Nevada's going to look at this and say, okay, here's a blueprint for how to attack this defense? We're going to copy a bunch of stuff that BYU is doing. Do you expect that, Spencer?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think regardless who you play, that's why as a defense we got to always look and see, okay, what has shown up? First off, how have people attacked us? And then two, what has worked? Like, what's the plan going against us? And so they're 100% going to look at this game. They're going to look at, I would assume, our losses, but even some games that maybe, we gave up some things that we shouldn't have. And they're going to look at, I would also assume, some offenses that are similar. But they're going to look at it and see, okay, these are some plays that hit us, and we're going to have to go back, and we're going to continue to rep the things that hit us in BYU. We're going to rep the things that hit us in UTEP. We're going to continue to rep those as the season goes on, because that's how it is. And offenses are looking for ways to attack a defense. And if it's on film, it's probably going to come back, and they might get dressed up a little different. It might be lined up in a different place. But it's going to be coming. There's no question.
Position is. I mean, it's a big part
Huge.
of the defense. A couple of weeks ago, he was hardly playing at all on defense. This last week, he played more snaps than he had all season combined prior. How steep is his learning curve right now, and how much do you really need something out of him right now, too?
No doubt. I mean, it's definitely all hands on deck, and proud of Gabe stepping in there, and even in practice, got some reps, not as much as he even got in the game, and especially for play one. I mean, even Ty Tanner, he played more reps that game than he's played his entire time at Boise State. And so it's those guys obviously show that, they're stealing the mental reps even when they're not getting those reps even in practice, because you never know. After rep two guys are thrown in there that haven't played a ton. And especially at the edge position, it's vital to our success and them playing very well. And so I think Gabe did some really good things in the game, and him, Devin Wright, Cortez Hogans, these guys are stepping up, and we need them to. And they're excited to do that, and they're going to be grinding, and we're going to find ways to put them in good spots come Saturday night.
What do you remember about recruiting Gabe?
Yeah, I mean, coming out of high school, Gabe was, a Texas kid, and having him come to Boise. I remember Coach Schmetty, when he was here, recruited him, and I just remember when he came on campus with his family, he was just a great kid, and one of those situations where he had some different opportunities, but came to Boise, fell in love, and he's been a joy to coach, and he's a guy that doesn't say much except yes sir, no sir, but he always shows up early, grinds, And it's cool to see him develop the years he's been here. And that we talk about working in the dark a lot with our defense, because what you do in the dark will always be brought to light. And he's a guy that showed up. I mean, hasn't played hardly at all, and then now on one of the biggest games of the year, he gets in there and has a lot of snaps. And so it was awesome to see that he's been paying his dues, and now he's able to get some reps.
Last one.
You brought up Titanic, or actually, I want to ask Zeke was the last one. How much was he fighting to stay on the field? And I mean, truly, how much of a presence does he make? He played like 30 snaps and 8 tackles.
Yeah. No, he's huge. I mean, he's a huge part of obviously what we do defensively, but even more from a leadership standpoint on the field, the presence that he brings. And so without him, it's always going to be different. Obviously, we need guys to step up when someone gets down, but wishing him a speedy recovery, because he's one of the toughest players I've ever been around. So when he's in pain, he's hurting, because he'll push through anything. And so wishing him a speedy recovery, because without him, we're just he's a huge part to what we do too. And it's next man up mentality, but it's also, for me, you got to give credit where credit's due with some of these guys that have put the time in, that like a Zeke Noah, where we love him being out there, and we're gonna pray that he gets back quick.